This is Kelly of Rojo Chief Clothing, and I'm going to talk to you about bear fat. Okay, it says bear fat was once the Swiss Army knife of North America. Native American tribes, which we know are American Indian tribes, variously used it to weatherproof knives and bows, moisturize drum hides, straighten their hair, and repel insects. In the 19th century, which is the 1800s, European settlers brought to the Americas a belief that bear grease effectively treated hair loss. In London, John George Wood wrote in 1856 it was a custom for hairdressers to keep bears in their premises. Many Londoners, he adds, paid for the privilege of rubbing their heads on the bear's body so as to ensure they got a real bear grease. The Apaches used bear fat in glass jars to predict the weather, a practice handed down to G. Gordon Wimstad, the bear grease kid, who in the mid-1900s used it to forecast more accurately than the day's leading meteorologists. Then you see this man here, and this is an Indian, and he's fighting with a bear, and it says right here to straighten the hair. Okay, so we know that that's one of the techniques that our ancestors used to straighten their hair. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. And right here it says the long hair of the Crow men. It says the men of the Crow tribe grew their hair all their lives, and it was so long that it swept the ground behind him. Every morning the men of the Crow tribe would oil their hair with bear's grease. Okay, so we're going to stop. So here's some more proof. It says here from a book that's on Google that's called Hog's Instructor, spelled with 2 G's. It says it was a tremendous race, for the Indians knew the advantage as well as he, and Dan says that his long curly hair began to straighten and lift his cap on its ends before it reached the point. They pressed him to close and hard. However, he got past before they surrounded him, and now he says his hair fell as smooth and sleek as if a pint of bear's grease had been poured over it, but not until he reached up and taken down his cap off the stiff ends to wave as he shouted back at them in diverse triumph, and then darted between the shades of the friendly wood. Okay, so they was talking about an Indian whose hair was long and curly, and that his hair went long and straight, felt smooth and slick as if he had poured bear's grease upon it. Now, this is from an ebook that's called Hog's Instructor, and I will copy this and have this below so that you can read it. Okay, so here's a picture of Madam C.J. Walker, and they say that Sarah Breedlove, also known as Madam C.J. Walker, it was an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, and a political and social activist. Walker was considered the wealthiest, they say as African American, but we know she probably was American Indian, businesswoman and wealthiest self-made woman in America. They say that she was born December 23rd, 1867 in Delta, Louisiana. She died May 25th, 1919 in Irvington, New York. Her net worth was $10 million. She was married 3 different times. Once to Charles Joseph Walker from 1906 to 1912. She was married to John Davis prior to, from the years of 1894 all the way to 1903. And she was also married before that to Moses McWilliams in 1882 through 1887. So basically, Charles Joseph Walker was the last husband that she had. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Madam C.J. Walker on a website called Biography. They say that she was born 1867. 1919 is when she died. Madam C.J. Walker created specialized hair products for, and it says African American hair, but we know it's really American Indian hair, and was one of the first American women to become a self-made millionaire. It says Madam C.J. Walker invented a line of, it says African American, which is supposed to be American Indian, hair products after suffering from a scalp ailment that resulted in her own hair loss. She promoted her products by traveling around the country, giving lecture demonstrations, and eventually established Madam C.J. Walker's laboratories to manufacture cosmetics and train sales beauticians. Her business acumen led her to be one of the first American women to become a self-made millionaire. She was also known for her philanthropic endeavors, including a donation towards the construction of an Indianapolis YMCA in 1913. The early life. Madam C.J. Walker was born Sarah Breedlove on December 23, 1867, to a cotton plantation near Delta, Louisiana. It says her parents, Owen and Minerva, were recently freed slaves. And Sarah, who was their fifth child, was the first in her family to be freeborn. Minerva Breedlove died in 1874, and Owen passed away the following year, both due to unknown causes, leaving Sarah an orphan at the age of 7. After her parents' passing, Sarah was sent to live with her sister, Lovina, and her brother-in-law. The three moved to Vicksburg, Mississippi in 1877, where Sarah picked cotton and was likely employed doing household work, although no documentation exists verifying her employment at that time. Okay, so then it's skipping down to the hair care part. So it says, during the 1890s, Sarah Breedlove developed a scalp disorder that caused her to lose much of her hair, and she began to experiment with both home remedies, and I'm thinking that these home remedies were taught to her by her ancestors. That's what I'm betting, hands down, because American Indian women, we're known for our ancestors for using, different things, herbs and flowers, in order to cure certain ailments with the skin and the scalp and to grow our hair. And so we're going to get into that as well. And it says, and she began to experiment with both home remedies and store-bought hair care treatments in an attempt to improve her condition. In 1905, Breedlove was hired as a commission agent by Annie Turnbow Malone, a successful black hair care product entrepreneur, and she moved to Denver, Colorado. Madam C.J. Walker Company. While there, Breedlove's husband Charles helped her create advertisements for a hair care treatment for African Americans, which we know this to be American Indians, that she was perfecting. Her husband also encouraged her to use the more recognizable name Madam C.J. Walker, by which she was thereafter known. 1907, Walker and her husband traveled around the South and Southeast promoting her products and giving lecture demonstrations on her Walker method, involving her own formula for pomade, brushing, and the use of heated combs. Now pause. Now we know that the Crow Indians, that they used heat and also bear's grease in order to straighten their hair. So where would she have gotten that from unless she was an American Indian? Because this obviously was not a technique that people of African descent used. Okay? So it says here, Walker's agents, as profits continued to grow, in 1908, Walker opened a factory and a beauty school in Pittsburgh, and by 1910, when Walker transferred her business operations to Indianapolis, the Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing Company had become wildly successful, with profits that were the modern-day equivalent of several $1,000,000. Okay, so I'm going to stop that right there. Okay, so we're going to look at this article that's on Indian Country Today, and it says 5 reasons natives have luxurious locks, ancient and indigenous hair remedy. Okay, so it says, have you ever wondered why Native Americans have resilient indigenous hair? It says, or ever asked why, when you see the old pictures of their ancestors, not too many of the older people had gray hair, or why their hair was so long, and why the men had such healthy hair. It says the answer is pretty much simple and applies to every aspect of who American Indians and Alaska Natives are. As a people, our ancestors saw their indigenous hair as a part of their identity. It was an embodiment of how they lived, just like everything that surrounded them. They gave respect to everything in nature, as you probably already know from history lessons. For one, they never used all those so-called modern hair care gadgets and products on their indigenous hair. They took pride in their hair, and different indigenous hairstyles represented different things in their life. Their hair was a great spiritual importance to them, and they took great pride in it. It says, let's see here. They had natural hair care practices that kept their indigenous hair strong, thick, shiny, and long. These include herbs, roots, teas, oils, and infusions. Some of these are as follows. Aloe vera. Aloe vera is a great natural moisturizer that was used in everyday native life for protecting the hair and the body from the sun and other harsh weather conditions, and also keeping the hair soft and silky. This was one of the main ways that they used to keep indigenous hair healthy. Aloes are edible and very good immune boosters and toxic cleansers. They also ate this in their daily life to help them stay fit. These are just a few of the benefits of using aloe vera. But for even longer list of uses, there's a pretty good article here that lists 40 different uses. Okay, so skipping down to saw palmetto. This herb is indigenous to native lands and is formed partly of their nutritional diets. Also has a very good medicinal value. Saw palmetto is a scarlet red berry. They would dry it in the sun for days and then grind it and infuse it into tinctures, teas, and ointments, which were applied to their hair to help strengthen it and also prevent scaly scalp dandruff. Now, this might have been one of the things that she had used in, Madam C.J. Walker, because she had an ailment with her scalp, they said. So it says saw palmetto also has properties that suppress the hormone that causes baldness. So taking it orally as topically application, like putting on your scalp, like we always do, all the time, is one of the ways indigenous hair was kept so beautiful. So then you have stinging nettle. It says most male pattern baldness is caused by the testosterone being converted into DHT. Stinging nettle has been found to have properties that stop testosterone from being converted into DHT. This is the hormone which is responsible for hair loss in many men and women. This plant grows wild and in abundance in America. Native Americans used it a lot, in which why you don't see too many Native Americans hair loss problems or having to get their hair transplants. Since it grows in the wild, they would just handpick it, of course paying attention to the stinging because it has spiny stem, and infuse it into oils to moisturize their hair. They would brew it as a tea for drinking. Stinging nettle has vitamins A, B, and C vitamins, and it also has a lot of amino acids and iron. Amino acids help with protein formation in your body, and the hair needs protein to grow strong and healthy. Vitamin B and C are also important for healthy hair. Okay, so then they say here, washing and protective styling. They didn't wash their hair and mess with their hair every day, so this allowed their hair to relax, which is very important for hair growth. If you are constantly messing with your hair, it can hinder the growth. Indigenous hair is also braided often. This is a form of protective styling that helps to keep your hands out of your hair. Okay, so that's that. So I'm thinking that that's another technique or other techniques that Madam C.J. Walker might have used in some of her oils or pomades that she used for herself and also sold to other people. So this is a picture of Madam C.J. Walker, aka Sarah Breedlove. It says hair growth, new hair growth. Whether or not the valuable hair stimulating properties of bear grease was discovered by the Red Indians of North America is not easy to ascertain. The fact remains that it possesses unusual qualities which make it an old and well-proven remedy for failing hair and baldness. It stimulates the hair follicles, produces a luxuriant and glossy growth, and is especially helpful in combating dandruff. It is delicately perfumed and provides the ideal daily greasing for the hair. It is economical in use and costs only 2 cents. So anyways, so basically they try to throw shade at our ancestors and say that they didn't know whether if it was something that the Red Indians of North America, our ancestors, had found out and discovered, or if it was something that was used in England. Obviously, we know that the Red Indians were the people on the planet, so apparently they got the idea from us, and it was documented by the Smithsonian that the Crow Indians had used it to grease their hair, and that the Indians had also used perfume in the bear grease, and also used, other, flowers to perfume their greases and oils that they used in their hair. So it's obvious. It's an obvious American Indian, hair technique. So anyway, tell me, what do you think about this? Do you think that, Madam C.J. Walker, that she used American Indian home remedies in order to come up with her products, her oils and pomades and other things that she used to straighten the hair and used to create, healthy hair and a healthy scalp? Please like, share, and subscribe. I'm out.